Welcome to another episode of Random Thoughts with Julito. All right, y'all. I say it every episode that I'm excited, but I'm really excited because my good friend is in the building today. A legend in the Brooklyn world in this acting scene, but a industry titan, somebody I look up to as a friend and as a comrade. My brother Rick Gonzalez in the building.
Yeah, what's up, Brooklyn? Brooklyn, we
Big,
here.
big Brooklyn. Yo, Rick, man. Like I just told you offline, but I have to say it here. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being on my podcast. Like I said, we met years and years ago, but you've been just a stand-up dude since the moment that we met. Always A1 type of guy, always just a kind individual. So this podcast is a podcast where I bring my people that I admire or love or family, friends, that people that I want to give their flowers to. So,
Like what? Yeah, man, I gotta give you your flowers. Cause I think I said this when we first met. I'm like,
mhm,
it's criminal, B. Like you were just what you did on The Wire is like
mhm,
ridiculously incredible. You know what I mean? So I always, every time I think of The Wire, I think of you and your scenes with
mhm,
Hassan, and it's heartbreaking. And like, I love the way you brought a certain type of street dude to this to that character that needed that approval, and
mhm.
we don't normally see that from those those characters, and that's why I
Yeah.
love The Wire so much, and why I felt like it was criminal the way the industry just kind of like took its time to give everyone their flowers on that
Mhm,
show, because
mhm.
Hollywood's always last to figure out
Yeah.
what's really good. And I just felt like when we met, I feel like I want to say I said that because I was like, yo, you
It
look
was probably
incredible.
something like that, but I appreciate it. I
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
it so much because, like, you know, you're a person that I also feel like the industry hasn't given you your just due, even though they're taking notice and they've been taking notice since you started. But there's moments where I look at it and I'm like, yo, Rick need to be in every fucking movie right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm thankful to have you on, and thank you for your kind
Yeah,
words about me.
of
But
course.
born and raised in Brooklyn, I want to start from the
Yeah.
beginning for you. Um,
Mhm.
what was it like growing up for you? What part of Brooklyn are you from also? But what was it
Yeah.
like growing up for you in Brooklyn? And where was the transition for you from being a kid in Brooklyn to jumping into the acting world? What was that like for you?
So I was born and raised in Bushwick.
Mm,
So, for those that don't know, like it's very close to Bedford-Stuyvesant, where Biggie's from.
hmm
I would say Bushwick is sort of like the very north of Brooklyn, and sort of very close to Queens. So
hmm
you could walk to Queens from Bushwick, you know what I
hmm
mean? Ridgewood, Queens and stuff like that.
It's like
Um,
across the street, right? It
it's
is.
like if you get to Cypress Avenue, like if you take like Green straight up, or
Mm,
maybe like Menahan straight up, or one of
right.
those streets, Grove straight up, and you hit Cypress, you're immediately in the Queens.
Gotcha.
So you're like a five minute walk away. But growing up in Bushwick at that time was a mixture of love and paranoia,
Mm,
because in the 80s and 90s, it's sort of like the wolves were out, you know what I mean?
hmm
So it's like a lot of people were kind of like I just remember as a kid, like always walking out the house and having to look over my shoulder, or like having the third eye, worried about like, is somebody gonna try to set it on me today? Like, is it today is gonna happen, But at the same time, it was a mixture of love, because Bushwick represented like the soundtrack to my life. I heard salsa through every Buick Regal that came by on the car. I
hmm
heard the latest Big Daddy Kane album. I heard, like, I fell in love with music really early on. And, it's because of Bushwick that happened. Bushwick has the first movie theater I ever went to with my mom. And so she would take me there like clockwork, maybe, 4 times a month
hmm
to see a movie. And, so it holds a lot of dear things in my life, and it was absolutely dangerous, but at the same
Yeah,
time, like I made a lot of friends there,
yeah.
some people that I still call my friends to this day. And, you know, um, it's where I think, you know, for me, I realized that my strength and who I am is just embracing everything that I've learned and gone through growing up in Bushwick, you know, and embracing that person, you know, because I feel like that's what this is about, is being true to yourself and just,
Yeah.
you know, honoring that person, you know. Obviously in life you realize like how to temper that, but I realized that, you know, Bushwick was a crazy time, but it was also like, when I think of it, a beautiful time.
Yeah, I
And
always say that, Rick. I always say I wouldn't change it for the world.
yeah,
Growing up in Brooklyn, I grew up in Flatbush in the projects. I wouldn't change it
for
because
sure.
it created something within us that helped us all the way throughout our life, right? To survive in the industry. If you could survive in Bushwick, if you could survive in Flatbush, you could
Yes,
survive anywhere.
for
You know what
sure.
I'm saying?
I agree with that.
100%. So growing up in Bushwick,
Yeah.
where was the transition into acting for you? Because I know you went to LaGuardia, you went,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? What was that like?
Yeah, so I've said this many times before. I was 5 years old when I affirmed to my mom that I wanted to be an actor.
Mm.
It was in a home video that I realized I had said it to her. I was holding one of those giant cameras back in the day.
Mhm.
And, you know, I was telling my mom, like, I want to do this when I grow up. And I'm pointing to the camera that I'm holding. And, and so I take that moment and, you know, you go to school, right? And there's always these school plays and,
Mhm.
you know, and so I was always driven, I want to be the lead in these plays, you
Mhm.
know. If we're going to do Annie, I want to be, you know, I can't be Annie, but I'll be Daddy Warbucks.
Daddy Warbucks.
You know, so I'm Daddy Warbucks, you know, and so it was that kind of thing where like I, you know, finished 5th grade. I told mom I want to learn how to act, you know.
Mm.
So she said, okay, well, let me search junior high schools that have acting programs. We found one in Bushwick,
Mm.
had an acting program. It was too late for me to get in, but moms was able to just talk to the dean, and dean was like, sure, it's fine, come on in. That school also led me to a guidance counselor who was like, what do you want to do after, you know, you finish here? Like, I'm like, I want to continue to learn how to act. She's like, well, there's a school called LaGuardia. You know, have you ever heard of it? I'm like, I have no idea what that is. She's like, well, it's the school to learn how to act. And I'm like, well, that's where I'm going to go. She's like, well, you need to have 2 other places to apply for in the school, in the district, in the city rather. And I said, no, I'm just going to apply there. So I auditioned, and pretty much the rest was history, sort of, like in terms of like getting on track in terms of getting towards a professional career, because that LaGuardia kind of set me up for that.
Yeah.
So when I got there, when I auditioned, I met James Moody, who played the father in the movie with Vanity and Timok, The Last Dragon.
The Last Dragon.
Last Dragon. He played the dad, was like, director your
Oh,
pizza, the Daddy Green
okay.
Soul Pizza. Anyway, James is one of the first Black men to graduate from Juilliard. And he was also a teacher at LaGuardia. He taught drama. And he saw my tape, was like, you're definitely getting in. He's like, I also have this musical repertory company that I work with. It's called the Rosetta Noir Theater Academy, Musical Theater Academy. And we're off Broadway at 40, I want to say 43rd and 8th. We're at the Harold Clurman Theater, wherever the Harold Clurman Theater is, right, by 43rd and 8th. And so I'm like, yeah, I want to do that, you know? And so I end up finding out Rosetta Lenoir, if people don't know who she is the grandmother from Family Matters.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
So what she did was, and God bless her soul, like this lady was just so genuine, because she took the money she made from Family Matters and funded a musical theater academy for New York City kids who, you know, had no access to, you know, learning how to sing, dance, and act, right? To become triple threats. And so it was through Mr. James Moody, who was like, come do this company with me. You know, we get together every Saturday, and then we put together a show at the Harold Clurman Theater, and you're going to be off Broadway, and you know, you get to learn, you know, and I'm like, I'm in. And so I'm learning acting, I'm learning singing, I'm learning dancing at, you know, 12 and 13 years old. And then a year later, I'm going to LaGuardia. And you know, and then that was kind of like the introduction to me understanding like the craft of acting and everything that entails. And it just made me fall in love with it even more. It was everything that I expected it to be. You know, going backwards, I think the love for acting started with my mom, because mom was into horror films and she was into action movies and she was into pop culture. You know, my mom consumed pop culture. So we listened to the Eagles and we listened to Hector Lavoe and we listened to Motown, and we also watched Stallone and Schwarzenegger and Friday the 13th, everything. And so, you know, that stuff just kind of like, it like buzzed inside of me. It just, it was just like this thing inside of me that was palpitating and was just buzzing. And every time I would watch a movie, it was like I was internalizing the experience and just saying like, well, how would that translate for me? You know? And so my communication with my mom was just like, you got to get me in these classes because I have to learn this. And so, you know, once LaGuardia was done, thank God I was able to get an agent because of the school. And, you know, I just kept going.
The rest is history. Yeah, I have no regrets in life, but see, when I was young and it was time for me to go to these acting schools or these performing arts schools, I was already acting. So it was tough for me because I was like, I don't want to go and be with actors all day, not thinking like that's where you actually need to be. So that's one regret I have, is that I didn't go to a LaGuardia or a PPAS.
You know, what's an interesting thought is like, I was talking with Lawrence Fishburne one day, and he was having having a conversation about, you know, going to school as opposed to, you know, just learning on the job, you know, not having that craft to learn from. And, you know, his idea was that, you know, I don't think you should do that, you know? And I think everyone's journey is different, because it doesn't necessarily mean just because you study that you're more qualified for the part and that you have this talent to give to the world. I think the talent is talent, you know? And at the time I disagreed with him, because I felt like the same way a doctor has to go to, you know, to learn, you know, actors need a place to like get better. But I agree with him. And the older I got, the more I was like, no, I agree with that, because I think with terms of acting, it's a medium that, you know, as long as the instrument is being true and honest, and it makes sense to the creator who's creating with the actor, that's all that matters. You know what I'm saying? And
I had, not to cut you off, I had to learn that though, because I had never taken it. I still haven't taken an acting class. Right. But I learned early on, I didn't take an acting class because we couldn't afford it. You know what I'm saying? We couldn't afford you know, these $300 a week classes. So I had to learn the only way we knew how, and that was, I talked about it, I believe, on my first episode. I learned how to act watching the making ofs of DVDs. So, you know, back in the day, the DVDs used to have the behind the scenes, and how I would just study it and just like, okay, this is how they're doing it. And those were like acting classes. It was like master classes, really, because
we talked about the character and everything.
But okay, so LaGuardia, you get an agent. So you start doing a bunch of guest spots, a bunch of different roles. But for me, I felt like 2002, 2003 is when the world started to take notice. That year, you did Biker Boys and Old School. Two classics. What was that year like for you, and what did it mean to finally start getting recognized for like the years of work you put in?
So, you know, it was after I did a film called The Rookie with Dennis Quaid for Disney. That was like, oh, okay, you know, that was very successful, and I was able to get those auditions now. Like, you know, I was starting to get in the room with certain things, and I did some indies after that, and then the auditions for Biker Boys and Old School came through, and when those came out, everything started moving quickly. You know, like things started to like move quickly. I remember auditions coming in. I think after I finished Old School, the audition for Coach Carter came in, and that took a little while because I think I auditioned for that maybe like four or five times. So that took a while for it to land. And I remember like, because my hair was so long back then, right? So it's like I'm in Los Angeles, and normally, you trying to get into a club and you can't really get in, you gotta like finesse the right words to the bouncer or whatever.
Right.
And now like, my friends is like, yo, man, make sure your hair's out so we can get in the
club. Listen, you know how many times I had to wear that goddamn ponytail for the homies?
So that's what I remember. Those years were pretty brutal in terms of like, I gotta like play the part here, and just try to like make life a little easy for me. But yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of happened fast. Like, and I guess the interesting thing is like, I guess you're a dad, so it's like you have no idea about being a father, and then once the baby's here, dad mode kicks in. And so like, whether you know how to do it or not, you just adjust to success or like whatever that means.
Yeah.
Whatever's happening at that moment, you're adjusting, and you're either faking it till you make it, or you're just like, nah, I got this, I'm cool. You know what I mean? And I think for me, I was like in kind of two modes, like faking it till I made it. And then at the same time, like trying to play it cool, Right. So yeah, it was pretty fast, and for me, my career was like moving really quickly in the early 2000s and mid 2000s. And then all of a sudden it slowed down,
Yeah.
And
yeah. But I want to stay here because you had your run. I think we don't acknowledge people who have been able to stay in this industry for like the early 2000s to now and be able to have people still recognize our work and still love our work and appreciate the things we do. Because there's some people, unfortunately, that this industry eats them alive. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like maybe it's the Brooklyn in us, maybe it was our upbringing, maybe it's our family and our friends that kept us grounded in order to stay in this industry for this long. But 2002, 2003 for you was like the beginning. And, what I loved about you was that you didn't just take roles that was one lane. You got one spectrum of comedy over here on Old School, and you body that. Then Biker Boy is over here with Derek Luke and the, and the sex crazed, character over here. And it was you're never typecast. And that's what I appreciated. But then it was Coach Carter.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've ever told you this, but watching Coach Carter made me want to be an actor. That was the first. That was the first movie I seen. It was two movies, Paid in Full and Coach Carter. So watching you in particular and Coach Carter made me want to be an actor.
Wow.
And I know we've never talked about that because once we met, we became friends and it's just been love. But I wanted to tell you that because if I hadn't watched that movie, I wouldn't be where I am. You know what I'm saying?
Crazy.
Real talk. Real talk. And I remember seeing your character and I was like, yo, that's my dream role, bro. Like and then seeing you from Brooklyn and then seeing you a Latino, I'm like, yo, I looked up to you at that. I still do because I love your work. But at that time, I was like, I think I want to act. I remember telling you after watching.
That touches you. That's crazy. Wow.
Real talk.
That's dope.
But Coach Carter, we got to talk about it, man. One of my favorite films of all time. I think it's highly underrated, even though everyone loves it. But it really is such an amazing film. What was that time like for you doing this film? And what was it like working with Samuel L. and Rob Brown, who was like killing at that time? Yo, you went in an audition and Rob was in there. He was getting it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so what was that process like with all these young folks and then the legend Samuel L.?
Yeah. It was an amazing experience, first and foremost. Like, I still call Rob a dear friend to this day. A lot of those guys are dear friends of mine. Like, we all really bonded and had a really great time shooting it because I think we all just you know, a lot of us were already working for some time, and, you know, for us to just be together with Sam and to really soak up and enjoy the experience, you know. We were getting to play basketball for 3 months and have fun and really just tell this story together. So for me, the beginning of it was sort of turbulent because I had an audition for the part and I didn't get along with the director for some reason. Like I went into the audition room and note to self, I have to speak with Sarah Finn about this because she's the casting director. I'm sure you know Sarah Finn.
Yeah.
She, I need to ask her what happened because we got into a little beef. Like almost I had to walk out the room. Like Sarah was like,
wait,
all right, why don't you go outside, Rick? And
wait, y'all got into a beef in the audition room?
We exchanged words in the room, me and the director, Thomas Carter. We exchanged words.
Wow.
And so much so that I was surprised that I got the job. So,
but that was perfect. That was Timo Cruz.
I guess so. I guess maybe he was pushing my buttons to see like where I would go. And so then I get the call that I got the job, and I go to the table read, and he pulls me to the side and he's like, "Hey man, I just want you to know that there's no hard feelings. I think you're great, but let's just have a great shoot." I'm like, "Absolutely. I don't know where we left off on the wrong foot, but I want us to have a great shoot. So I'm looking forward to it." And then boom, we're in it. We're in the gym and we're learning basketball plays. And, you know, and for me, like the first step was just humbling myself and saying, okay, I got to come at this on some, like, I've never played basketball before. I'll learn everything. I'll relearn everything they need from me, you know? So for them, it was just like, well, you know, Robert Richard is going to be our point guard. So he's going to be the more dribble specialist. We want Timo to be the 3-point specialist and to shoot, you know? So we just want to work on your form and this and that. I'm like, great, perfect. That's what we're doing. And fast forward to like learning about who I want Timo to be. So talking with the writers, the conversation was, obviously these guys are real guys, but Timo was actually a combination of a couple guys. So one guy left the team and one guy was active in the streets. And so they kind of decided, well, we can't have both of them. So let's combine them both, create this guy, and let's make them Latin. You know, we don't have that representation. They did that. Thank God. And so getting to know, I didn't really get to meet the guys. And the one thing that I felt like I felt like I dropped the ball was the accent for Timo, because I didn't have anyone from the Bay. I had no friends from the Bay. There was no like YouTube where I could just like go up and learn the accent. You know, I wasn't going to listen to E40 all day and try to make Timo sound like E40, you know? So it was just like trying to understand the subtleties of like what the Bay sounded like back in 2003 when there was no library or, you know, information at my fingertips at the time where I could learn the accent. So unfortunately, I just had to just make him like sort of like a transfer student type, you know, where he's from the East Coast, but he moved over there and, you know, he's with his cousin. And, you know, unfortunately, they hired Vinny Laresca to play my cousin. And so he's East Coast as well. So, you know, so it kind of just played into that idea of like, you know, we're a family that, you know, is broken and moved over here. Maybe my cousin, you know, just was getting away from trouble and brought me with him, you know? And so for me, it was just like, I think the frustration of Hollywood not understanding what these inner city kids and the struggle that these kids go through. So I actually, you know, accepted the challenge and said, you know, finally, you know, let me take this character and represent, you know, what Hollywood doesn't understand about these guys. You know what I'm saying? And they always cast, to me, I always felt like they casted people that don't bring the authenticity of like turmoil, you know, the inner turmoil in terms of like what these kids go through. They're usually too pretty looking. They're too like, you know, they just don't represent the struggle. And so,
you see it often. You see through it when they're it's a parody of what we live and where we come from. You see through it. And that's why I think I respected your characters so much, because you weren't trying to be a gangster. You wasn't trying to, you can tell that character, that was his life.
Yeah.
And he didn't necessarily want it to be, but that was his experience, and you played that so effortlessly, my brother, so
Thank you, man.
effortlessly.
Thank you. Yeah, there's so many films that I've thought about, and I'm like, I just don't want this guy to be that. I think there's a real opportunity here. East, for wherever you from, if you from the hood, east or west or the south or Midwest or wherever, there's a common thread that everyone's connected to in terms of like the pain of being from a broken home, the pain of not being affirmed as a child, the pain of not, having stability and discipline in your life. So then you don't know where you belong in life.
Yeah.
So now, everything is a cry for help. Everything is like, I need to affirm myself through, the affection of maybe a gang, or the affection of, women, or the affection of drugs, or, and so for Timo, I think he loved his cousin. I think his cousin was sort of like this false father figure who actually forced him into a life that I don't think Timo wanted to do. You know what I mean? And so for me, I held on to that because I'm like, man, I feel so bad for this kid. I really do. And I knew kids like that.
Yeah.
Those are the kids that I tried to avoid those kids in the hood because they tried to terrorize me. They did. I remember this one kid in the neighborhood, like I'm walking with my brother. He's like, I don't know, my brother must have been like 8 at the time. I think I was 15 or 14. And he was just a terror, and I see him and I'm like, damn it, man. Like, and he was just ready to do it, so it was that thing where I was like, okay, so I have these tidbits and these things that I want to use, that I want to color Timo with. And I want, to show that danger and that sadness, that sadness of him,
You landed it perfect. And I think being from our neighborhoods, it didn't just mesh us and mold us. It gave us room and characters to create with. Like you said, I look at people I grew up with. Naaman was not my life at all by any means, but Naaman from The Wire, that character I played, was all of the dudes I grew up with in the projects. It was me just, like you said, using our experiences to color our characters. And I think that's what makes it great work. But he said our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. That speech was perfect. Perfect, my brother. Did you have you ever read Marianne Williamson's The Return of Love?
No, I didn't know. I didn't learn about it until I read the screenplay, and then obviously, Nelson Mandela spoke it when he was released from prison. And then I researched, like, okay, this is Marianne Williamson. This is her speech. And, I think the thing about it was like, when I did it that day, I didn't know how, I had this idea of how I wanted it to come out. And I think ultimately what showed up on the screen was like just a simple conversation without saying it to him, without saying all those things. I appreciate you letting me stay with you. I appreciate you too. It's like, I just want you to know that I was always listening. I was always listening, and I thank you for that, and I wanted to make that clear for him. And I think the writers did a wonderful job in making that pay off in the film, because, Timo really needed that. And I think that's what Coach kind of represented for these kids, was like, I'm going to affirm these kids in a really strong way, because children need discipline,
for sure.
And that's how you show them you love them, it's when you let them do what they want that they realize, like, do you even care?
Ooh,
and so he knew that, so he affirmed them and saying, no, you're going to do this the right way. And so that, when you do that, they do listen.
Reluctantly, but
reluctantly, you know what I mean? It ain't going to be easy.
Word. He said to him, you saved my life. And that was so poignant, because I've had a person in my life that, if it wasn't for them looking out for me or caring for me, like you said, I don't know where I would be. Is there a person in your personal life that you had that, you feel helped you stay on track or to get to where you are?
Yeah. My mom is the way she raised me, because Bushwick, like I said, it was dangerous and beautiful at the same time. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of alluring things, in the neighborhood that was exciting to me. The people, the music, the hustlers, everything. And so, my mom's a single parent, so she had two boys. So for me, it was easy for me to go out there and get lost in the allure of the life, as Jay-Z likes to put it. And so I think for me, you know, uh, my mom ain't always right, but she was right about me in terms of like putting that iron fist on me. And I feared her more than I did the streets. And so because of that, it led me on the straight and narrow. Like I had to it was early on was a little shaky for me, but once I reached LaGuardia, she had a really great grip on me as a person. And so it allowed me to just focus on I'm going to give this I'm going to go full steam ahead with acting. And there was no doubt in my mind I was going to act. There was literally no doubt in my mind. I knew it. And it was one of the purest things that I've known in my life in terms of acting was I'm going to do this. Now, eventually I would ruin it with other things and destroy it in certain ways, but that's what life is about. You get off track, you get back on track, and you figure it out.
It's all opportunities for us to grow. That's what I look at. Anytime I fuck up, I'm like, all right, what do I need to learn right now? What do I need? What is this telling me? What is this moment creating in me? It's all an opportunity to learn. So we met on the red carpet of Illegal Tender.
Ooh.
Throwback. That's when we first met. I don't even know if you remember that.
That's crazy.
I was on that red carpet and I was so hyped to meet you because, as I said, I looked up to you, and to watch you in a film where you're the lead character in like a action kind of, the film is nothing but like Latinos and people that look like me and who we got similar names. Like it was really a beautiful experience to see that. So I was hyped that they asked me to jump on the red carpet. But what I want to talk about is first, of course, what did that mean for you to play in Illegal Tender, and what did John Singleton mean to you? Because I know he played a huge part in you getting that role and that film even being made. And his passing was, it was sudden, and I didn't know him personally. And it hurt me, so I can only imagine for a person like you who really got to spend time with him. What did he mean to you? Did you learn anything from him throughout that process?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, first of all, to answer your first question, to do Illegal Tender was monumental. I think, there's just not enough identity and representation for Afro Latinos like us, right? And so to get an opportunity at that time, and at that time, John Singleton was red hot because he did Hustle and Flow, and then he did Black Snake Moan, and so right after Hustle and Flow, Universal gave him a 3-picture deal, and so Illegal Tender was a part of that 3-picture deal, and that was everything. It was written by Frank Reyes, who literally wrote the part for me. He was like, I'm gonna give you your lead. He came up with this idea and was like, and so as fate would have it, he sees John, and John saw one of his other films, Empire with John Leguizamo. And was like, I love that film. What you got something else? And he's like, I do. I just created this thing for this kid named Rick Gonzalez. It's called Illegal Tender. And John was like, all right, pitch it right now, So, John, that's who John is. He's just I wish I had his energy, because he's just so, virile and strong and just let's go. So that's who he is, and so literally in 2 weeks, the deal was done, and they were finishing up the script, and he was writing it, and John was like, let's go, let's shoot, And so before you know it, we're in Puerto Rico finishing the film with Diego Calderon, and and John's in Puerto Rico, and you know, it was just crazy. Like, you know, I learned a lot. You know, I feel like, you know, it was a lot that I learned about. I realized that, you know, there was things as an actor that I was like, okay, you know, there's a sort of like understanding of, you know, in terms of creating a character and going from the beginning to the end and understanding that. And I think for me, it was also like quick and sudden that I didn't understand the whole puzzle of my character. And so in hindsight, I saw a lot of opportunities that I missed, but to say the least, man, I learned a lot about even filmmaking. You know, John is a walking USC film school.
Yes.
So for him, when we watched the film and when we watched shots, and I'd finish a shot and I'd go to the video monitors where we watch playback, he's explaining to me like, oh, this would be perfect for the close-up, and we're gonna do this, and I want on this line, we can do this, you know, and then he's talking with Frank about, you know, the shots and what we need to do. And so those little tidbits of understanding, like, you know, the mechanisms of what makes storytelling possible just by the shots, you know, and you know, because he was a big component of emotional storytelling through directing and what the shots look like. And he was, you know, that's stuff that he learned through Spielberg and being at USC and stuff like that, you know, and he would go to Spielberg's house and just talk shop about all this stuff. So he would literally pass his information on to us, you know. And, you know, I think for me, like, just the fact that he affirmed me in terms of, you know, as an actor, you know, as a Latino actor, the fact that he said, you know, you the shit, you know, ain't nobody fucking with you, you know, and it was just the way he said it is just like,
you believed it.
It just made you feel like, oh, I could kill this town, you know? And that's who he was, you know, he really affirmed, you know, the people he was around. And, you know, you can't put a price tag on that. You know, you can't, man, that stuff sticks with you forever.
I was supposed to work with him. So he had casted me in a Ludacris Runaway Love video. Oh. And then he ended up on like the last week not being able to do it. So Jesse Terrero ended up doing it, and shout out to Jesse. Come on, that's my guy. But I never got to work with John, but you know, his passing, it was really, I really felt it, man. And but that's what John was. He was a genius, and he gave people like yourself an opportunity. It's crazy. I got this shirt on, bro. I just put it on. No, I just threw it on, and then I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna ask Rick about John. Look at the way the universe is working, right? That's crazy. That's love. Right? Like that's love, man. And God rest his soul. God rest his soul for sure. So you have a vast elite resume, from comedies to dramas, action. What project do you think you learned the most from?
Oh, that's easy. I did a TV show on the CW called Reaper. And it was a comedy. We were on for like 1.5 seasons, maybe 2. And it was dry humor, right? So I think I was comfortable in very physical comedy. And with Reaper, it's a buddy comedy. So there's 3 guys, and then we have the straight guy, you know, who Brett Harrison plays. And then we have my buddy Tyler Labine, who plays Sock, and he's like this burly, really funny teddy bear dude. And then there's me in the middle. And I'm sort of like this really sweet and lovable, but like very just sensitive guy. And so finding the comedy in between the straight guy and the really funny, burly, lovable guy who's very big with his comedy, it's like, where do I fit in, and what does that sound like? So I think I was being tested in terms of like having to understand comedy in a different way. And I think once I finished that show, it kind of clicked for me in understanding like the rhythm and timing for that comedy. And it sticks with me to this day. Like I owe that show so much, because the writers of that show, Michelle Vazikas and Tara Butters, they were writing stuff to me that I felt like was like ahead of its time. It was so funny. It was so different, and abstract and weird, but at the same time, like lovable and funny and like had a lot of heart that like, you don't get to see that as much on television, you know? And so, you know, they definitely pushed us to have fun and to really bring a sort of a tone to a comedy that for me at the time, I've never really was stretched to do, you know? So yeah, I mean, I think for me that, you know, it's those moments in the career where that's when they say like learning on the job, that was it for me.
Yeah,
you know,
I gotta watch it, man. I'm so mad that I missed it. I knew when it was on, but I don't watch TV like that. So I'm like, I have to watch it. I have to watch it. Rick, do you got like a dream role, like or not, maybe not a dream role, but a story that you want to tell on screen or on film? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah. Right now, I think for me, the dream would be to play this. So the Fania All Stars were like this famed group of guys, this collection of guys that, you know, that took salsa music and just took it to a whole nother level, you know.
I'm not
talking
gonna,
about like,
not to cut you off. El Cantante is one of my favorite movies.
oh,
Mark Anthony. I saw it in theaters, bro, like 5 times. The
dope.
weekend it came out. So like, this is exciting me that you talking about. But please go ahead.
Yeah. No, so it's just, you know, I feel like there's so many stories in there, you know, and you know, you have people that like have created sounds that just kind of like changed everything about, you know, what we know as salsa, you know, and I'm just trying to find someone in particular who, you know,
Because we got to
that
see it from Hector Lavoe's perspective.
well, we got to see it from his. And so the architect for Fania is called Johnny Pacheco. His name is Johnny Pacheco. Johnny Pacheco, you know, essentially created salsa music. You know, he was someone who understood all the African, Cuban rhythms and understood all the different sub rhythms in that culture, you know, and in that music world, and found a way to create salsa in there, you know. And so that became a huge global phenomenon. And so it sort of spurred this culture and this, you know, what made me, right? Because I'm like, I'm a child of that music, you know? And so like, that's something that I relate to, you know, in terms of identity and representation. And that's sort of like the forefathers of like creating this culture that my mom used to dance to, you know, and my grandmother, and, you know, and so like that, there's so much history in there. And so for me, like I would love to do that, you know, to play Johnny Pacheco, who created like salsa and, you know, who's with Celia Cruz in Africa performing for, you know, 50,000 people, more than that, probably 100,000 people.
Oh my
like,
God.
it's just, I mean, it's just so many amazing stories like them in, you know, at the Cheetah Club, you know, in the 60s and 70s performing with Stevie Wonder, you know, and just, you know, there's just so many stories. They were able to just touch so many people and like just giants in the game, you know, and I don't think a lot of people really understand the impact that they had and the connections that they had.
They
with
changed
the
music.
Yeah, for sure.
Music.
For sure. They definitely influenced a lot of artists at that time.
Yeah. From your mouth to God's ears, I can see it. I speak it into you. I hope that's, you know, somebody in the universe is listening, because that would be an amazing opportunity. But before we get out of here, we got to speak about Arrow. We got to see you, as of recent, play Wild Dog for 4 seasons on an amazing show. Arrow is a really good show, and it's weird. I'm not into action, but I really like Arrow.
Oh.
And they wrapped up, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Wrapped up. What was it like for those 4 years being on that set, being in that action world? What was it like for you, man? And what do you miss most about Arrow?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like, you know, the 10-year-old Rick Gonzalez in Bushwick with his friends, like, you know, just playing pretend and having fun. Like, I literally, like, I was stand next to my castmates and we're all dressed up in our costumes with guns out, weapons, all this crazy stuff. And we're just like, yo, we're really doing this. Like, this is what we're doing. Like, the bad guys are right there. The man's about to say action, and we about to go fight. You know, I mean, it's just, it's pretty surreal and fun. And, you know, you just got to enjoy that stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're not enjoying it, then it's not going to play well, you know? And yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, it's a dream come true. I had no idea who Wild Dog was, but I think that didn't matter to me. I think what matters was like, I'm a part of a DC universe. You know, I'm part of something that I spent money as a kid to see, you know? And and for me, it was like, oh, this guy's sort of like the Punisher. Perfect. Let's go have fun. You know, let's go do it. You know what I mean? So I just, you know, for me, it was also like, how can I humanize him and make him, you know, more endearing? And, you know, the writers were like, oh, we're going to make him a dad. He's going to have a daughter. And, you know, he's going to fight to get her back. And, you know, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, you know, and then I'm like, he got these 2 guns and he wears the hockey mask and then he just be wilding out and Arrow got to try to check him. And he's like, you can't check me. I'm Wild Dog. You know, it's a lot of fun, man.
Yeah. So it's a really good show. And it's good on like a rewatch too. That's why I love it, because there's certain projects you see and it's like I watched it one time, it's cool.
Yeah, I'm done.
I'm done. It's good on the rewatch. So please, still go watch it, go support it. Yo, so every week I do a random thought of the week. I allow the supporters, I call them the randoms, the random family. They get to ask me, myself or my guests, a question for the week. So this week is from Creative Artsy Maker on Instagram. First off, that's my people, Simone. Please, y'all go support her. Her line, her business. She makes everything from t-shirts to buttons to everything, custom made stuff. But she asks us, what does it mean for us to be dads? And what have we learned from being a father? And I want to say you have a beautiful family. But what does it mean for you to be a dad, and what did you learn from like having kids?
I think what I learned is, you know, I think what I'm learning is like there's this duality of how I was raised and how I want to raise my daughter, right?
Yeah.
And she's not a boy, she's a girl. But I still want to apply the things that I didn't get to her. So I'm learning, or I'm just actively trying to apply that, you know? Yeah. I think also like in the beginning, I found Christ in 2015. So my daughter was born in 2013. So the period of 2013 to 2015, I was still like not in a good place, good space. And I think, the dedication aspect caught up once I accepted him, accepted Christ. And then, so like the work in terms of like pouring into my daughter and being disciplined in just the everyday thing, you know? And so if I'm being, you know, honest with Creative and telling her, like, I think for me, it was more about pouring into my daughter, you know, in ways that I felt like maybe I didn't get as a kid, you know? And so I'm very conscious of that because I feel like that for me, and I've said this many times to a lot of friends of mine, I just think affirmation and affirming your children is the most powerful thing you can do. You know, more than putting a head over the, you know, a roof over their head, more than anything, because as long as they know that you think the world of them and that you love them unconditionally and that you care so much about them that you're so focused on them, there is nothing that they're going to fear when they walk out into the world, you know? And I think for me, you know, I knew my mom loved me. I knew, but coming from a broken home, you know, no one does it perfectly. You know what I mean?
There's no how-to manual.
There's no how-to manual. That's just like, you know, as long as they survive and, you know, then you did it right. You know, as long as they're alive, then you did it right, you know? And so I think there's this thing about affirming them. And I think that's what I'm learning is like, you know, it's so powerful when you just pour into them that way.
Yeah.
And everything falls into place after that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliantly said. I think for me, very similar. I think what I had to learn was that it's okay to not get it right. You
Yeah.
know, I think early on in my life, I would I would be away with my mom because I felt like she wasn't getting it right as a parent. Yeah,
Mm.
she wasn't hitting all the notes, or she wasn't what I wanted her to be. And then I had a kid, and I was like, oh shit, like oh okay, I see why she
The
wasn't getting it
struggle,
because
right?
it's tough
It's not
and
easy.
it's not easy. You know what I'm saying? So I've learned grace from being a dad. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Grace.
powerful.
I've
That's
learned
powerful.
how to understand people and understand that none of us are perfect, because I'm not a perfect dad, and I don't think my daughters need me to be a perfect dad. You know what I'm saying? I don't think our
Cool.
children need us to be a perfect parent,
No, no,
because you know, it's one thing to put the mask on for your kids and have them look
right,
at you as superhero,
right,
but that's cool, but
right.
we, a kid learns more from seeing their parents say, "Damn, I have the answers right now.
Yes.
I
Facts.
don't have it all together right now, and I'm learning right now because I was a young dad, so I'm learning as I go." So I think, you know, grace and understanding that it's okay to not know, it's okay
Yeah.
to not have it all together.
I
Um,
think there's something beautiful about, you know, there's something powerful when kids get to talk with their parents and there's this honesty about, yeah, I was struggling. Yeah, it was hard. You know what I mean? Because then like at some point, you know, the kids become have create a friendship with the parents, you
oh
know,
yeah,
and now we can have this conversation and say, yeah, it was tough, you know.
yeah,
And I think that's earned once, you know, once honesty and truth is in play, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And
yeah.
so it's a powerful thing that you said, because it's like that humbleness of like always bringing that to the table is never going to steer anyone wrong,
A
you
hundred
know?
percent. And
Can't.
another thing, another really pivotal thing that I learned is that it's okay to apologize to your children.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying, bro? Our mothers seem
Facts.
very similar, and my mother wasn't saying sorry for shit. Like she was right, and that was it. And even if she fucked up, deal with it. Yo, there's times where I've, like, you know, had a moment with my child where maybe I was being too impatient, or you know, I
Yeah.
got upset,
Yep.
or you
Yep.
know,
Hmm.
and I realized I'm like, that wasn't cool.
Yeah.
Madison, my bad. And I
Yep.
think hearing that has shifted the type of child she is, because she's now willing to be vulnerable with me. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? And I didn't have that growing up. So now that's something that I'm learning, like, oh shit, okay. I'm learning that. I'm learning, like,
Yeah.
it's okay to treat your children like they're human beings and not like our
Yeah.
possessions, right? Because we don't
Right.
own our children, right?
Right.
We're here to support them and guide them, but they're in our possession. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's 100%, man. That's beautiful, because my wife and I, we do the same. Like we, you know, sometimes with Skylar, like, you know, it actually impatience is the perfect word, because, you know, we're doing Zoom schools and we have to like monitor everything. And so it's really difficult. So it's wearing on our patience. So it's like a lot of times we have to be like, sorry, Sky, I apologize. She's like, it's okay, Dad. You know, and so, and now we see that, you know, we see her apply that to her own friendships, you know, and
Yeah,
we see her, you know, give grace, you know what I mean,
yeah,
sometimes. And it's really beautiful to see, like, okay, like, because it's important for me that my daughter's a good person, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, you know, especially with, you know, her dad's in the industry. Like, I don't want her to grow up to be some sort of like entitled, you know, child. You know what
yeah,
I mean? I want her to be respectful and humble.
yeah,
So like, that's what our main goal is like making sure that she's respectful and a good person. And it's true. It's like these examples that we lived, you know, we show them, they really are watching us and seeing us. And I think
yeah.
when we can humble ourselves to them, at the same time still be disciplinarians,
Hmm.
that sends a strong signal, you
Yeah,
know. It really does.
100%. Yo, Simone, thank you for that question. That was an amazing question. Again,
Yeah.
support Creative Artsy Maker on Instagram. She's a really good person in my life, and please support her. And thank you for that question. Yo, Rick, man, this has been a pleasure, man. We gotta talk more often, man. It was really good to chop it up with you, man.
Likewise,
and really,
man.
really good to hear from you. And thank you again for saying yes, man, to this
Man.
podcast.
Of course. I
man.
think the world of you. I gotta give you your flowers. Like I said, man, you shine in whatever you do. You know what I mean? So God willing, we get to work together one day. I would love that. You know what I mean?
It has to. It has to happen.
Yeah.
And maybe we got to write it. I don't know, but it has to happen.
Yeah,
Yo,
let's do that.
Rick, anything we can look forward to coming from you in the near future? Any new projects?
Yeah, I mean, I'm shooting a pilot now for NBC. I'm not sure if we're gonna get picked up yet, but it's in the air. But it's based on the Dan Brown novels of the Da Vinci Code and the Lost Symbol and Angels and Demons, and so it takes place in the Lost Symbol book of one of Dan Brown's novels, and so it obviously follows Robert Langdon, and so we're shooting the pilot for that now, which is exciting and fun and.
It's getting picked up. It's getting picked up.
I hope so. We'll see.
We gotta speak that, bro.
But it's looking good, and I think it'll be a nice ride for everyone, and sort of like great escape for everyone dealing with COVID. I feel like a good Dan Brown novel on television would be a fun way to to kick off 2021. Yeah. So we'll see, man. But yeah, putting positive love out there for that.
There we go. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I know it will get picked up. I'm gonna speak it into the universe. I know how it is, bro, because I had a few pilots, and I'm like, God, I'll do it for you. It's gonna get picked up. But yo, Rick, love to your family, love to Scholar and Wifey. Please send my love to them. And y'all, thank you for supporting Random Thoughts every week. Follow us on Instagram at Random Thoughts, the podcast.
Brooklyn forever.
Come on, big Brooklyn. Oh. Follow my brother Rick Gonzalez everywhere at Rick Gonzalez on Twitter, on social media. Stay up to date with what he has going on. Follow us on Patreon at Random Thoughts with Julito. And if you want your question to be the Random Thought of the Week, email me at randomthoughtswithjulito@gmail.com. Again, my brother, thank you so much, Rick. It's been love. I hope to see you soon, man. Kill it out there in T-Dot.
You're ready.
And I see you when you get back, man. Love, my brother.
You're ready, man. Yes, sir.